This is Max and Mia podcast.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the Max and Mia podcast. I'm Max.
And I'm Mia. How's everyone doing today?
We're so happy to have you here with us again. Mia, I have to ask you something. Do you remember your first job interview?
Oh my goodness, yes. I was so nervous, Max. I practiced in front of the mirror for hours, but when I got there, I completely forgot everything I wanted to say.
That's so relatable. I think we've all been there. I remember sweating so much during my first interview that I had to apologize to the interviewer.
Oh no. But you know what? That's exactly why we're here today. We know that many of our listeners are looking for jobs or thinking about changing careers.
Absolutely. And since we've talked about resumes, cover letters, and job search tips in previous episodes, we thought, why not take it to the next level?
That's right. Today we're doing something really special and practical. We're going to show you what real job interviews look like with 2 complete interview simulations.
We've prepared 2 different scenarios that many of you might face. First, we'll see someone interviewing for a position in the IT sector. That's information technology for those who might not know.
And then we'll watch an interview for a teaching position. These are 2 very different fields, so you'll get to see how interviews can vary depending on the job.
The best part is that after each interview, we'll break it down together. What went well, what could be improved, and share some tips that you can use in your own interviews.
Plus, we might share some funny stories from our own interview experiences.
Oh, we definitely will. So grab your notebook, get comfortable, and let's dive into today's episode. Job Interview Simulations, your guide to success. All right, everyone. Before we jump into our first interview simulation, let's go over some key vocabulary that you'll definitely hear during IT job interviews.
Great idea. We've picked 5 essential words that will help you understand everything better. Max, why don't you start us off?
Vocabulary preview.
Perfect. Our first word is troubleshoot. This means to find and fix problems, especially with technology or software.
Exactly. Troubleshooting is basically detective work for tech problems. For instance, you might say, when the system crashed, I had to troubleshoot the issue by checking the server logs.
Great example, Mia. Now, our second word is implement. This means to put a plan or system into action.
Right. To implement something means to make it happen in real life. Let's say you could mention, I successfully implemented a new security protocol that reduced data breaches by 40%.
Awesome. Word number 3 is collaborate. This means to work together with others on a project.
Collaboration is all about joining forces with teammates. You might hear something like, how do you collaborate with developers from different departments?
Brilliant example. Our fourth word is optimize. This means to make something work better or more efficiently.
Optimization is about improving performance. For example, you could say, I optimized the database queries, which improved the application's speed by 25%.
And finally, our fifth word is scalable. This describes something that can grow or expand easily when needed.
Scalability is crucial in tech. You might mention, we designed a scalable architecture that can handle millions of users without performance issues.
Perfect. Those 5 words will definitely come up in our interview. So, keep them in mind.
All right, everyone. Now it's time for our first interview simulation. We're going to listen to Rachel, the hiring manager at TechFlow Solutions, interviewing Leonard, who's applying for a junior software developer position.
This should be really interesting. Let's pay close attention to how both of them handle the different questions.
Good morning, Leonard. Please have a seat. I'm Rachel, the IT director here at TechFlow Solutions.
Good morning, Rachel. Thank you so much for taking the time to meet with me today. I'm really excited about this opportunity.
Great. So, Leonard, tell me a bit about yourself and why you're interested in this junior developer position.
Well, I graduated with a computer science degree last year, and I've been working on personal projects to build my skills. I'm particularly passionate about web development and problem solving. What really attracts me to TechFlow is your reputation for innovative solutions and the collaborative work environment I've heard about.
That sounds promising. Now, I see you have some experience with JavaScript and Python. Can you walk me through a recent project where you had to troubleshoot a complex issue?
Absolutely. Last month, I was working on an e-commerce website for a local business. The shopping cart feature kept crashing, but only for certain users. I had to troubleshoot by checking the browser console, analyzing user behavior patterns, and testing different scenarios. It turned out to be a memory leak in the JavaScript code. I optimized the code and implemented better error handling, which solved the problem completely.
That's impressive. Now, here's a tricky question. If you were working on a project with a tight deadline and you discovered a serious bug just hours before the release, what would you do?
That's a tough situation. First, I'd immediately communicate the issue to my team lead and stakeholders. Transparency is crucial. Then, I'd quickly assess the severity. Does it break core functionality or is it a minor issue? If it's critical, I'd work with the team to either fix it rapidly or suggest postponing the release. It's better to deliver a quality product a bit late than to damage the company's reputation with a buggy release.
Good answer. I like that you prioritize communication. Now tell me about a time when you had to collaborate with someone whose working style was completely different from yours.
That's actually a great question. During my final university project, I was paired with a classmate who preferred to work in long, intense sessions, while I liked to break tasks into smaller chunks throughout the day. Initially, it was challenging to coordinate, but we sat down and discussed our preferences openly. We found a middle ground where we'd have focused collaboration sessions twice a week, and then work independently on assigned tasks. This approach actually made our project more scalable and well-organized.
Excellent. Here's another challenging question. What would you say is your biggest weakness as a developer?
I'd say I sometimes spend too much time perfecting code when a simpler solution would work just fine. I'm learning to balance quality with efficiency. For example, I've started setting time limits for myself when working on specific features, and I ask for feedback earlier in the process, rather than trying to make everything perfect before sharing it.
I appreciate your honesty. Now, where do you see yourself in 5 years?
In 5 years, I'd love to be a senior developer who can mentor junior team members. I want to continue learning new technologies and possibly specialize in areas like cloud computing or artificial intelligence. I'd also like to contribute to open source projects and maybe lead a development team on complex, scalable applications.
That shows great ambition. Do you have any questions for me about the role or the company?
Yes, actually. I'd love to know more about the team structure. How large is the development team, and what does collaboration look like on a typical project?
Great question. Our development team has 12 people, split into 3 smaller teams of 4. Each team works on different products, but we collaborate frequently. We use agile methodology with daily stand-ups and sprint reviews.
That sounds really collaborative. I'm also curious about professional development opportunities. Does TechFlow support employees who want to pursue additional certifications or attend tech conferences?
Absolutely. We have a professional development budget for each employee, and we encourage attending conferences and workshops. We also have internal tech talks where team members share knowledge about new technologies they've learned.
That's fantastic. One last question. What do you enjoy most about working here at TechFlow?
Honestly, it's the innovative culture and the fact that we're always working on cutting-edge projects. Plus, the team genuinely supports each other's growth. Well, Leonard, thank you for your time today. We'll be in touch within the next week.
Thank you so much, Rachel. I really enjoyed our conversation, and I'm excited about the possibility of joining the team.
Wow, that was a really comprehensive interview. There were some great moments there.
Absolutely. Leonard handled some pretty tough questions really well. That's a wrap on our first interview simulation. All right, Max, what were your thoughts on that interview? I think it had some solid moments, but there's definitely room for improvement too.
I totally agree. Let's start with what Leonard did well. I loved how he began with a clear, concise introduction about himself. He didn't ramble. He hit the key points: his education, his passion, and why he wanted to work at that specific company.
Yes. And did you notice how he used specific examples? When Rachel asked about troubleshooting, he didn't just say, "I'm good at solving problems." He told a complete story about the e-commerce website issue. That's so much more convincing.
Exactly. And speaking of examples, I have to share a quick story here. When I was interviewing for my first marketing job, I made the mistake of giving vague answers like, "I'm creative and hardworking." The interviewer actually stopped me and said, "Can you give me a specific example?" I was so embarrassed because I hadn't prepared any.
Oh no, that's exactly why Leonard's approach was so smart. He came prepared with real stories. Now, let's talk about those tricky questions Rachel threw at him. That deadline question was tough.
Right. What would you do if you found a serious bug hours before release? That's what we call a situational question, and Leonard handled it brilliantly. He showed he could think under pressure and prioritize communication.
I also appreciated how honest he was about his weakness. Instead of giving a fake answer like, "I'm too much of a perfectionist," which everyone uses, he gave a genuine weakness and explained how he's working to improve it.
That's such a good point, Mia. You know, I once had an interviewer tell me that when candidates say their weakness is working too hard, it actually makes them seem dishonest. Leonard's answer showed real self-awareness.
Absolutely. Now, here's something I want our listeners to pay attention to. Leonard asked really thoughtful questions at the end. He didn't just ask about salary or vacation days. He asked about team structure, professional development, and company culture.
Yes, those questions showed he was genuinely interested in growing with the company, not just getting any job. But let's be honest, were there things he could have improved?
Well, I think he could have been a bit more specific about his technical skills. He mentioned JavaScript and Python, but he could have elaborated more on frameworks or specific technologies he's worked with.
Good observation. And while his answers were great, I noticed he took quite a long pause before answering the deadline question. In a real interview, it's okay to pause and think, but you should let the interviewer know you're considering the question.
Right. He could have said something like, "That's a great question. Let me think about that for a moment." It shows you're taking it seriously rather than just being nervous.
Here's a practical tip for our listeners. Practice the STAR method for answering questions. That's situation, task, action, result. Leonard naturally used this when talking about the e-commerce project. He described the situation, what he needed to do, his actions, and the result.
That's brilliant advice. And remember, body language matters too. Even though we can't see Leonard in this simulation, in real life, maintaining good eye contact and sitting up straight makes a huge difference.
Definitely. One last thing. Leonard did something really smart by researching the company beforehand. He mentioned TechFlow's reputation and collaborative environment. That shows initiative and genuine interest. Now, let's shift gears and prepare for our second interview simulation. This time we're focusing on a teaching position, so the vocabulary will be quite different from our IT interview.
Absolutely. Teaching interviews have their own unique terminology. Let's go through 5 essential words that will help you understand our upcoming education interview better.
Vocabulary preview.
Great. Our first word is curriculum. This refers to the subjects and content that students are taught in a school or course.
Exactly. The curriculum is basically the study plan or program. For instance, you might say, I have experience developing curriculum for middle school science classes that aligns with state standards.
Excellent example. Now, our second word is differentiate. In education, this means to modify teaching methods to meet different students' learning needs.
Right. Differentiation is all about adapting your teaching style. Let's say you could mention, I differentiate my lessons by providing visual aids for visual learners and hands-on activities for kinesthetic learners.
Brilliant. Word number 3 is assessment. This means evaluating or measuring student learning and progress.
Assessment is basically how we check if students are understanding the material. You might hear something like, how do you use formative assessment to guide your instruction throughout the semester?
Perfect example. Our fourth word is engagement. This describes how involved and interested students are in their learning.
Student engagement is crucial for effective teaching. For example, you could say, I increase student engagement by incorporating interactive technology and real-world connections into my lessons.
And finally, our fifth word is collaborate. In education, this means working together with colleagues, parents, or students to achieve educational goals.
Collaboration is essential in schools. You might mention, I regularly collaborate with other teachers to create interdisciplinary projects that benefit our students' learning experience.
Those 5 words will definitely appear in our teaching interview. So, keep them fresh in your minds, everyone.
All right, everyone. Time for our second interview simulation. This time we'll hear Jessica, the principal at Riverside Elementary School, interviewing Marcus, who's applying for a 4th grade teaching position.
This should be fascinating to compare with our IT interview. The questions and approach will be completely different. Let's listen in.
Good afternoon, Marcus. Welcome to Riverside Elementary. I'm Jessica, the principal here. Thank you for coming in today.
Good afternoon, Jessica. Thank you so much for the opportunity. I'm really excited to learn more about this position and your school community.
Wonderful. So, Marcus, tell me what drew you to teaching, and specifically, why do you want to work with 4th graders?
Teaching has always been my passion because I believe education can transform lives. I chose 4th grade because it's such a pivotal year. Students are developing critical thinking skills and becoming more independent learners. They're curious, energetic, and still love learning, which makes every day exciting and unpredictable.
That's lovely to hear. Now, can you describe how you would differentiate instruction for students with varying ability levels in your classroom?
Absolutely. Differentiation is essential for reaching every student. I use multiple approaches. For advanced learners, I provide extension activities and open-ended projects. For students who need extra support, I break down concepts into smaller steps and use visual aids. I also incorporate different learning styles. Some students learn better through hands-on activities, while others prefer reading or listening.
Excellent. Here's a challenging scenario. You have a student who consistently disrupts the class and doesn't seem to respond to your usual behavior management strategies. What would you do?
That's definitely a tough situation. But I've encountered this before. First, I'd try to understand the root cause. Is the student bored, struggling academically, or dealing with issues at home? I'd have a private conversation with them to build rapport and understand their perspective. Then I'd collaborate with the school counselor and contact the parents to develop a consistent approach. Sometimes giving the student a special responsibility or role in the classroom can redirect that energy positively.
I like your comprehensive approach. Now, how do you assess student learning and how do you use that information to guide your instruction?
I use a variety of assessment methods. Formative assessments like exit tickets, quick polls, and observation help me understand what students are grasping during lessons. For summative assessments, I use tests, projects, and presentations. The key is using this data immediately. If I notice several students struggling with a concept, I'll reteach it using a different approach the next day rather than moving forward.
That shows great responsiveness. Here's another tricky question. How would you handle a situation where a parent strongly disagrees with your teaching methods or a grade you've given their child?
Communication is crucial in these situations. I'd first listen carefully to the parent's concerns without becoming defensive. Then I'd explain my teaching methods and grading criteria clearly, showing specific examples of their child's work. If needed, I'd invite them to observe the classroom or suggest a meeting with you as the principal. The goal is always to work together for the student's benefit, even when we might have different perspectives.
Very diplomatic. Tell me about a time when you had to collaborate with other teachers or staff members on a project or initiative.
Last year, our grade-level team created an interdisciplinary unit connecting social studies and language arts. We collaborated to develop a project where students researched different cultures and presented their findings through creative writing and presentations. I worked closely with the librarian for research resources and the art teacher for visual components. The collaboration made the learning experience much richer for our students, and we saw increased engagement across all subjects.
That sounds fantastic. How do you stay current with educational trends and continue your professional development?
I'm always eager to grow as an educator. I attend workshops during summer breaks, participate in online webinars throughout the school year, and I'm part of a local teaching community where we share best practices. I also read educational blogs and research articles. Recently, I completed a course on incorporating technology into elementary curriculum, which has been incredibly valuable.
Impressive. And tell me, do you have any questions about our school, the position, or our community?
Yes, I'd love to know more about the school's approach to parent involvement. How do you encourage family engagement in students' education?
Great question. We have monthly family nights, regular volunteer opportunities, and we encourage parents to participate in classroom activities. We also use a communication app to keep families updated on daily activities and student progress.
That sounds wonderful. I'm also curious about professional learning communities here. Do teachers have opportunities to collaborate and share teaching strategies regularly?
Absolutely. We have weekly grade-level meetings and monthly school-wide professional development sessions. Teachers often observe each other's classes and share successful strategies.
Perfect. One final question. What do you think makes Riverside Elementary special?
Honestly, it's our commitment to every single student. We truly believe that all children can succeed, and our staff works tirelessly to make that happen. Well, Marcus, thank you for your thoughtful answers today. We'll be making our decision by Friday.
Another excellent interview. Marcus really showed his passion for education.
Absolutely. He handled some challenging questions with such professionalism. What a great comparison to our first interview.
Okay, let's break down this teaching interview. What really stood out to me was how different the tone was compared to Leonard's IT interview. Marcus had to show so much more emotional intelligence and interpersonal skills.
Exactly. While Leonard focused on technical abilities and problem solving, Marcus had to demonstrate his ability to connect with children, parents, and colleagues. That question about the disruptive student was particularly challenging.
I loved how Marcus didn't just give a quick fix. He talked about understanding the root cause first. You know, I remember when I was in elementary school, I had a teacher who took time to understand why I was acting out. Turns out I was just bored and needed more challenging work.
That's such a perfect example. And did you notice how Marcus used the word collaborate several times? In teaching, collaboration isn't just with coworkers, it's with parents, counselors, and even students themselves.
Absolutely. Speaking of collaboration, that interdisciplinary project he mentioned was genius. It showed he can work with multiple departments and create engaging learning experiences. That's exactly what principals want to hear.
Right. And let's talk about that tricky parent question. Jessica really put him on the spot there. Dealing with upset parents is one of the most stressful parts of teaching. But Marcus showed he could stay calm and professional.
I appreciated how he emphasized listening first before defending himself. That's such mature advice for anyone in customer service or people-facing roles, not just teachers.
Definitely. Now, here's something I want our listeners to notice. Marcus came prepared with specific examples. When asked about assessment, he didn't just say, "I assess students regularly." He explained formative versus summative assessment and how he uses the data.
That's so important. It shows he actually understands educational terminology, not just buzzwords. Although, I did notice he could have been more specific about technology integration, especially since that's becoming so crucial in modern classrooms.
Good point. And while his answers were thoughtful, some of them were quite long. In teaching interviews, you want to be thorough but also concise. Remember, principals often interview many candidates in one day.
True. Here's a tip for our listeners applying for teaching positions. Always ask about professional development and collaboration opportunities, just like Marcus did. It shows you're committed to growing as an educator.
And don't forget to research the school beforehand. Marcus could have mentioned specific programs or achievements of Riverside Elementary to show he'd done his homework.
Great observation. One thing that impressed me was how Marcus talked about staying current with educational trends. Teaching is a field that's constantly evolving, and principals want to see that you're adaptable and always learning.
Absolutely. And his passion for fourth grade specifically was genuine. He explained why that age group excited him, which is so much better than saying, "I like working with kids in general."
Let me share something interesting. Both Leonard and Marcus asked great questions at the end, but they were completely different types of questions. Leonard focused on team structure and career growth, while Marcus asked about family engagement and school culture.
That's such a smart observation. It shows how interview strategies need to be tailored to each industry. What works for tech might not work for education, and vice versa.
Exactly. Both candidates prepared well, but they adapted their approach to their specific fields. That's a key lesson for all our listeners. Research your industry's interview norms and expectations.
Perfect summary. I think both interviews gave us amazing insights into what makes a strong candidate in different fields.
Well, everyone, that brings us to the end of today's episode. We hope these 2 interview simulations have given you valuable insights and practical strategies for your own job interviews.
Whether you're applying for tech positions like Leonard or education roles like Marcus, remember the key principles we've discussed. Prepare specific examples, research the company, ask thoughtful questions, and most importantly, Be authentic.
Don't forget to practice using industry-specific vocabulary and adapt your communication style to match the field you're entering. Every industry has its own culture and expectations.
If today's episode helped you feel more confident about job interviews, we'd absolutely love it if you could hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell. It really helps us reach more people who could benefit from this content.
And please share this episode with friends or family members who might be job hunting. We're all in this together, and everyone deserves to feel prepared and confident in their interviews.
We'd also love to hear from you. Leave us a comment below telling us about your own interview experiences, both the good and the challenging ones. Your stories might help other listeners.
Before we go, remember that interviewing is a skill that improves with practice. Don't get discouraged if your first few interviews don't go perfectly. Every interview is a learning opportunity.
So true. Keep practicing. Stay positive and believe in yourself. You've got this.
Thanks for spending time with us today on the Max and Mia podcast. Until next time, keep learning and growing.
See you in the next episode. Bye, everyone.